Hello, everybody. Welcome, welcome, welcome. We are live now on the internet and in your ears as Donald Trump has been found guilty in his hush money trial in Manhattan. This coming in now at 5:07 Eastern Time. Donald Trump is now a convicted felon. A verdict being reached by a Manhattan jury this morning. Details are still coming in as we begin, but it looks as if it is a guilty verdict in the hush money trial on all 34 counts. That is it. It would have been very weird for him to be found not guilty on any of the counts, considering they're all the same crime, essentially. He was charged with 34 felony counts because of the both the payments that were written and how they were recorded in the books. So they were all going to pretty much go the same way. There weren't meaningful differences between any of the counts. But now it is official. Just in case there was any question here, as this is all coming in real time. Any hopes of the Newsmax juror dashed. This will not be a hung jury. As soon as it came in that the jury had reached a verdict, you pretty much knew where this was going. There was no way that a jury that had reached a verdict within 24 hours was going to acquit Donald Trump in Manhattan. That is for sure. And now it is come to pass that what was possible is now for sure. We are going to take a look here at some of the stuff that is happening outside of the trial in Manhattan. This from Emily No of New York One. I will say to parents who are listening to this in the car, this is all happening real time. So I cannot vouch for any of the language. Obviously, these are some very angry people here, but this is live outside the courtroom. Well, I guess we know what kind of language is happening outside of the courtroom here. Boy, it is all happening live here. Is Trump going to go full gangster rapper and use his mugshot in his own promotional material? Already happening right now. I mean, he had his mugshot. Mugshot paraphernalia is being sold officially. The word from Mark Caputo of The Bulwark is that there is, we will all probably, anybody who's on the Donald Trump official lists will be getting links to conviction-specific merchandise. Donald Trump saying 2 days ago that Mother Teresa could not beat these charges. Apparently, he has not read Christopher Hitchens's work about Mother Teresa, who is not exactly the best person on earth. But his larger point being that these were unfair charges, and that will be the case. Oh, you want to know what? You guys could not hear that. Good. Then this is still safe. This is still safe for me to put out on the podcast, because it was just people screaming and yelling a lot of profanity, which is better. I have now learned to not just randomly place things that were on the internet. So instead, it will just be me talking about something that was on the internet, as opposed to the other way around. The headline on the New York Times website, Trump guilty in hush money case. Politico, Donald Trump is now a convicted felon. MSNBC with a ticker for each count that he is found guilty on. Chris LaCivita, one of the grand poobahs of the Trump campaign. The fix was always in. Stephen Gutowski of The Reload saying that under federal law, Trump's felony conviction means he can no longer possess guns. And so we now will find whether or not the rubber meets the road on the final question of this 2024 race. That for all the sunny polling numbers that Donald Trump has seen over the past several months, to be totally honest with you, from the days of the primary on, we have seen Donald Trump not only improve with the base of the Republican Party, but also independents. An NPR poll today that had Donald Trump up 4, I believe, in the 5 wide, showed that Donald Trump was up 7 with independents. That's a gigantic number. And yet, the sword of Damocles that has hung over all of this is, if he's a convicted felon, does that affect whether or not you would vote for Donald Trump? There is now no longer a question. Donald John Trump is a convicted felon on 34 counts in a Manhattan courtroom. According to Tony Fabrizio, the chief pollster of the Trump campaign, this conviction will not matter at all. What people in America care about goes beyond what District Attorney Alvin Bragg brought to this case, and that many people are not paying attention to it. I can assure you that people will pay attention now. The only question is exactly how they will deal with it. Can he vote in Florida, says Death Carp here on Twitch. Yes. Felons were re-granted their rights a few years ago in Florida. Rob DR here also in our chat. If he wins, I hope the Democrats remember this when they are charged. Here's what we do know. This does not disqualify him from running. He is allowed to run for president. He'd be allowed to run for president if he is in jail. That being said, we don't know if he would go to jail. We do know that apparently there has been discussions between a local prison in New York City and the Secret Service. We have no idea where those conversations have gone. Obviously, this will be immediately appealed by Trump. He will look to get this case heard outside of Manhattan. Trump attorney has moved for acquittal, states that they believe Cohen perjured himself. That is breaking right now. I don't know where the appeals would go, which circuit the appeals would go. Sentencing apparently is possible in mid to late July. Now, that coming from the prosecutor. Okay, this is a new poll from a Canadian pollster showing that if Trump was found not guilty, he would be up on Biden +2. If he was guilty without imprisonment, Biden leads +5. Guilty and imprisoned, Biden +8. Um, we will see whether or not that is the case. What we have seen throughout this race is that anytime Donald Trump has been brushed up against the law, raided, indicted, put on trial, his poll numbers have tended to rise. Is a conviction a line too far? Does that convince America that this is, he is tainted? We don't know. Certainly the polling has showed that there's more indication for that than anything else. But we will find out. My group chats are just going insane right now. Right now, getting on the Democratic side, wow, Hillary Clinton with an epic takedown of Trump and a 700% match. Go to the actionnetwork.org. I have yet to get anything from the Trump campaign. Sentencing now set for July 11th. I look forward to finding out what the new Prime Minister of the United Kingdom thinks about Donald Trump's sentencing. Vivek Ramaswamy, former primary candidate for the Republican Party, writing on Twitter, the prosecutor is a politician who promised to nail Trump. The judge's daughter is a Democratic operative who literally raised money from the trial while her father presided over it. And the jury instruction said they didn't have to agree on the crime to convict. This will backfire. Mark Joseph Stern here on Twitter saying that Donald Trump is prohibited from voting in his home state of Florida. I thought that was reversed, but maybe I am not right on that. By the way, that sentencing will happen 1 week before the RNC. Who, baby? Who, baby? Trump speaking right now. Let's see if we can find. Oh, Trump saying rigged trial, disgrace. The real verdict is going to be November 5th by the people. Soros-backed DA, I'm a very innocent man. This was done by the Biden administration. We'll fight to the end and win. Our country has gone to hell. Nation in decline. Various different Republican influencers posting an upside-down American flag, very much in the news these days. What the hell will the RNC look like? A lot of angry people. That's what. Just anecdotally, if I'm going to look at folks who are talking about this just in my own life, it seems as if people believe this is what will lead Donald Trump to the White House. And you thought it was going to be a slow month. Well, that's the reason why you need to you need to subscribe to the show. I mean, can you imagine if Donald Trump is sentenced to prison and has to do the Republican National Convention from the phone, from a prison phone, on those charges? I mean, we'll see how America reacts to that. My guess is, my gut says it won't be good, but who knows? Most interesting election to date. Depends on how you define interesting. It's certainly unique. Most unique election. And we had a pretty unique one in 2020. He's a master at playing the martyr, says, oh yeah, in our Twitch chat room. You don't got to be Laurence Olivier to play a martyr when you're sentenced to 34 felony counts and might go to jail. If he goes to jail, I would have a hard time believing that would go over well. Will he be sentenced if he appeals? I believe so. I believe a sentence is a sentence. Now, whether or not he has to serve it immediately, I don't know. Donald Trump Jr. on Twitter, guilty on all counts. The Democrats have succeeded in their years-long attempt to turn America into a third world S-hole. November 5th is our last chance to save it. And Coulter, who has not been a fan of Donald Trump for many years, writes, these idiot liberals might have just gotten Trump elected. But this is probably going to be the biggest week to watch the polls that we have ever seen. I would make the argument that if this doesn't materially move the polls negatively for Donald Trump, then he is in an extraordinarily strong position. If we don't see a dip in this, because this was the last thing. And also, it's now licensed for the Democrats to run every political ad, affixing the name convicted felon to Donald Trump's name. Convicted felon is now Donald Trump's first name. His full name, as far as the Democratic apparatus is concerned, is convicted felon Donald Trump. That's it. First name convicted, last name Trump. Felon Donald in between. You think it'll be negative to his polls? I genuinely don't know. That's what we've seen in the polling. That's what we've seen. Will it really be that? We'll find out. I think this galvanizes the Republican support like nothing else. I mean, the question is like, where does this pull from in terms of the never Trump or the suburban or the double haters, that kind of stuff? There's a reason why the GOP hasn't nominated him officially yet, says ADSR Thug. No, they haven't nominated him officially because their convention isn't until July. There was no hesitation there. If they could have nominated him early, they would have. So in Florida, a felon can vote if they've paid all fines from court and incarceration. I'm going to assume that DeSantis gives him a waiver for that. Or maybe he doesn't. I mean, I think Donald Trump got a lot of political mileage out of those gag orders. A reminder that we have a debate in less than a month. Do you think the Republican Party wants to be the party of convicted felons? There's a stain that they won't lose for a generation. I don't believe that Republicans believe those charges are legit. I believe they see it as a kangaroo court and political persecution, the likes of which you don't see in Western democracies. The kind of stuff that is normally reserved for third world countries. I believe this will rally Republican support to the side of Donald Trump, the likes of which nothing ever has. That's what we saw in the primaries. And this is what happened in the primaries supercharged. While the case put forward by District Attorney Alvin Bragg was obviously convincing to those 12 jurors in Manhattan, I don't know if the same could be said for the American public. There will be an appeal, but in New York, will it go any different? If it's outside of Manhattan, he has a better shot than inside of Manhattan. Brian Otter 74. Do you believe it was a fair trial and process? I've not seen your name in our chat room, Brian Otter. I do welcome you. My expertise is in watching politics and specifically electoral politics and who's going to win and who's going to lose. I'm not a legal scholar, nor did I watch this case any closer than just a person who's interested in it and reading a bunch of articles. I don't believe Donald Trump would have been charged with this in a court outside of Manhattan. And I don't believe this would be I certainly don't believe it would have been 34 counts. 34 counts is a lot, and it was based on every piece of paper that came out. I don't believe we would have gotten this conviction outside of Manhattan. Maybe LA, Manhattan for sure, but I think this was a reach. I think Mar-a-Lago is the strongest case that was brought against him. I think this was the weakest. MDTA UK says I was expecting one or two counts, but the rest, some semblance of doubt. No, all of these were going to go one way or another because they're not different crimes. They weren't different. They happened at different times, but they were all the same basis of fact. It was 34 counts because there were X amount of checks that were written, and then each time that they were recorded in his ledger, that was also a count. So every time that he wrote a check and accurately recorded it in his logs, that was one count each. So it was two counts, two counts, two counts, two counts, two counts. There wasn't anything different about the reason why those happen. A reminder that the charges here were that Donald Trump falsified documents in cover-up of another crime. One of the things that's been pointed out about this case is that he was never charged for the other crime, which is a Federal Elections Commission crime for covering up something that would have materially affected the election. This was always going to be a clean sweep one way or another. Like 34 counts is a lot of counts, but it was always going to be either not guilty on 34 or guilty on 34. Double entry bookkeeping got him. Yeah, basically. The jury instructions, which became very controversial, were that the jury did not need to agree on what the underlying crime was. I've seen this argued, obviously very volcanically from the right, saying that that was, just another example of why this jury was totally rigged from the beginning by the judge. I've seen that this is less controversial and it's being fixated on by MAGA. I'm not a legal scholar, so I will not be making any strong opinions one way or another. The lesson we can take away from this is don't expose payments to porn stars. You get the National Enquirer to pay off. This Stormy Daniels was not paid off by the National Enquirer. She was paid by Michael Cohen directly. Donald Trump paid Michael Cohen. His lawyer, which he wrote off as legal fees, or he kept the entry as legal fees. David Pecker of the National Enquirer was there to demonstrate that he worked with Donald Trump to do Catch and Kill with Karen McDougal, a Playboy playmate. But these charges were not related to the National Enquirer directly. Famous here in our YouTube chat room says there were 3 crimes which to choose from: tax fraud, state election, and federal election. So the jury did not need to agree on whether or not he committed tax fraud, state election fraud, or federal election fraud. You know who else got by financial records? Al Capone. You know the person who Trump said he got more indictments than? The great Alphonse Capone. That's what he said. Alphonse Capone. Covfefe fiction on all 34 counts. Comfortably Smug, the conservative influencer, posting on Twitter, or retweeting rather, a picture of Donald Trump with Jesus's hands on his shoulders with the quote, "I was convicted too." CNN reporting that a celebration is ongoing at the Biden campaign headquarters. WinRed, the conservative grassroots donation portal, is apparently down, which may or may not signal that they're very busy right now. Matt Glassman on Twitter. People with bad news to dump. Call your PR folks ASAP. Yes, indeed, he can appeal. Frank Luntz, the pollster, is currently conducting a focus group. This is happening live. He is saying that the consensus that people are worried about violence. They accept the conviction, but don't think it's a jail-worthy offense. They think the trial is good for democracy because it shows that nobody is above the law. A few participants don't particularly like Trump, but think the New York trial was a political hit job. All right. Well, guys, even though we're sitting on a pretty a nice audience here, I got to get this thing out to everybody on YouTube and podcast. So thank you for joining this emergency episode of the show. Donald Trump, again, convicted on 34 counts. His sentencing will happen on July 11th. That is only 1 week before the Republican National Convention in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. Polls have shown that a conviction would greatly hinder his ability to win the presidency. We will see. Is this the turning point of the 2024 election? Only time will tell. Until next time, friends, this is your old pal, Justin Robert Young.